June 15th, 2020 meeting of the City of Charleston's Design Review Board. My name is Erica Chase, the board's chairperson. The members of the board with us tonight are Aaron Stevens, Michelle Smith, Kristen Krause, and Dennis Leolio. Andy Smith is, I believe, joining us right now. Members of the city staff that are present are David Meeks and Linda Bennett. Agenda item number 2, 1, Leela Lane was removed by staff for staff review. And then Dinos Leolio and myself will be recused from agenda items 3, 4, and 5. And then Dinos will not be returning after agenda item 2 and will not partake in items 6 through 17. I'll run through our standard kind of order of meeting, and then I'll kind of go into our virtual addendum additional items. But the order of the meeting is the same as it always has been. Staff will give a project overview for any new item or any new projects. The applicant will then make the project presentation. Those are limited to 10 minutes. So at the beginning of your presentation, if you need time beyond 10 minutes, please let me know before I put you on the clock. We will then have time for board questions, and then we will open up the meeting for public comment. The public comment period is also limited to 10 minutes, but I believe we only have one person registered to speak for public comments. Otherwise, we have some public comments that were submitted to us prior to our meeting tonight. City staff will then give recommendations, and then we will have time. The applicant will then have 5 minutes to respond or clarify anything from the staff comments or public comment period. Then we will enter into board discussion time and then a motion and a vote. If you could, when you are brought into the meeting, please silence all cell phones or any devices that make noise currently. And I want to remind everyone that comments from the public are limited to site design and architecture. We do not have authority over zoning issues such as land use, building density, flooding, or traffic. So with that, David, I don't know if you want to start with the PowerPoint presentation. I'll run through our meeting protocol. And everyone, this is only our second Zoom meeting, so I'm going to thank everyone in advance for your patience for any hiccups we may run into.
Linda, I'm getting a message that host disabled participant screen sharing. If you could enable that for me, please. So give us a few minutes, please.
Okay. Do you want me to continue, David, or wait for the PowerPoint?
Do you have the protocol?
I do have it printed out.
Yes, please.
Okay. So our virtual meeting protocol, staff will be controlling the PowerPoint presentations, and that includes everything that each applicant submitted by the deadline. Applicants will need to ask David to advance to the next slide during your presentation. And applicants, staff, and board members are all required to give their name whenever speaking. The video and microphones have been disabled for all attendees. Attendees will only be given the capabilities to speak when they are called on during the public comment period. The chat and Q&A functions have been disabled for everyone. During the public comment period, and I believe we only have one person registered to speak, but the applicants and the public have all been required to register and indicating the project they wish to comment on. And just as an in-person meeting, all applications heard today are part of a public meeting format. If you've registered and will speak during the public comment portion of the meeting, you will need to state your name and address for the record. Members of the public that speak are encouraged to remain in the meeting for the completion of the item they've commented on. And staff will call on the registered members of the public to speak for each project. Unregistered members of the public who raise their hand will not be called upon. When it comes time for a motion and a vote, all board members will be polled by myself for their vote. Each member will be responding yes in favor or no in favor, and I will reread the motion verbatim. And the board member that makes the motion should correct me if the motion has not been read correctly. And if a board member needs to recuse himself or herself, they will be temporarily removed from the meeting and placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. Staff will be issuing meeting results, including staff comments and board motions to the applicant following the meeting. Results will also be posted on the city website. And for additional information, there's contact information shown on the screen. And I do want to remind everyone that all of this meeting will be recorded. So with that, David, I believe we're ready to get started with agenda item number 1, which is 965 Savage Road, requesting preliminary approval for the construction of a new 1-story medical office building.
I do have just a little bit of context for those who haven't seen the project yet. This is the location of 965 Savage, and a little closer view right off of 526. And this is from 526 looking down at the site and looking into the site. Site on the left looking back towards 526. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. Linda, if you could unmute Matt Klein and Jerry Trano, please. I'm not sure who was speaking first, but you could unmute them both.
Jerry, once you're unmuted, do you need time beyond 10 minutes? If you could let me know before you'll get started.
I don't believe so. I'll let Matt start just to follow the progress of the slideshow with the site.
Okay, sorry, you said you do not need time beyond 10 minutes? I couldn't hear you.
I don't think so. I think.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll put you on the clock for 10 minutes then.
Hey guys, this is Matt Klein, Klein's Harry. Looking at my notes, not to get into this project has been seen by the board a few times, and I just wanted to jump right into comments from my notes and how they were addressed. This project had if you want to go to the site plan, you can go to actually just the landscape plan.
I got it. Sorry. There we go.
Okay. The majority of the comment that we received was the plantings along the parking lot on the left side of the entrance driving in where the cars parked. That was a linear row that has now been, additional plantings have been planted there, and that is less uniform. In regards to the rest of the pond slopes were planted. The walkway goes around the pond, and there is a terminus at the very end that has some additional plantings. And the last comment that we saw was the condensate drain for the ACs, which we have another flash structure up at the building to pick up AC condensate before it hits the road. So that's our response to the comment previously provided.
Okay, anything else, Matt?
This project has not, that should address the comments that were previously made. We've been working through TRC on this project. We are currently working through a sidewalk along Savage Road. That may or may not, depending on how it works out, that sidewalk along Savage Road may or may not happen, just depends on the DOT and the city.
Okay.
But there wasn't any other significant changes to the site plan as a result of additional permit.
Okay. Jerry, if you'd like to continue.
Or if you could take us to, I think the first architectural slide is the floor plan.
There we go. Yeah, is that good, Did you say floor plan?
Yeah, that's good. So the floor plan in large has not changed. As the board saw it at conceptual. I just want to remind everybody what it is. Spec office space on the north side of the building and a lab and administrative support space for the lab on the south. One of the comments and discussions at conceptual was surrounding the HVAC farms plan Plan West, Plan South, and about combining them, as well as the idea of adding an exit to the plan Southwest. So I just wanted to, in plan, address that. We looked at that with a mechanical engineer. We need to keep a certain number of those mechanical units as close as possible to the northeast portion of the building, so we could not combine them all. I think there was also a space issue with doing that on the west end. So that did not change, but we did look at it. And tied into that discussion is also the door. I think where the bio room was, it was a comment that a door added there may add, I think, the architectural value and shadow lines in that location. And it just caused more problems than it solved. The floor plan didn't work as well for the tenant, and the electrical bank in that area would have been moved. So that we did not do those two things. Moving to the roof plan, may have been the slide before this. Another large focus at conceptual discussion was the treatment of the dormer kind of on the west side, southwest side. At conceptual, the last presentation, we had 3 dormers with one enlarged, one in the center. We have looked at several concepts for that dormer throughout the various conceptual submissions and discussions with the staff. And we studied aesthetically the different options that we had been through and iterations we had been through, and kind of boiled it down to, I think it was even suggested that it could go away. And the dormer provides value in its ability to bring light into the space high without impacting the function. And it also, I think the fume hood stack has become somewhat of an architectural element, but all the messiness at the base of that with the curb, fan housing, etc. We just thought the dormer screened those pieces and just allowed the cool part to remain visible, which is the stack itself and the guy wires. So that is where we landed with the studies and decided that we should keep the dormer, but simplify it to its kind of common denominator. Other than those elements, there was a lot of discussion about the main entry of the lab, the mass element, and how the roofs interact on the plan southeast side. Again, we looked through the various iterations. I think we had more of a true butterfly roof at conceptual last time. And in aligning the dormer with that roof element and looking at the, I guess, south elevation, which is on the next page, you could switch to that. As we lifted that roof element, it seemed to stand on its own as an architectural mass, and the roof itself, you can start to see kind of a repeating form with the phenolic resin on the left and the metal siding on the right, and just the proportions of that seem to be more pleasing than the previous form that we had. So that's the direction that we went. I think aside from that, design-wise, it was largely just focusing on materials, colors, details to make sure what we were rendering and showing didn't have any constructability issues. But those were the main design changes that we made.
Should I go through some of the perspective images?
Yeah, that would be good. Yes, actually, the downspouts and gutters were another focus of discussion. So I do want to address those in perspective. If you go back to the perspective. You know, I think it was just discussed that they need study.
Yeah.
That one, yes, that's a good view. You know, we thought the best treatment of them was to let them blend in and not really be highlighted as a design element. So just material treatment. I think they were rendered more residential in nature, so getting them showing like they will be, but not accentuating them, just letting them be minimalistic and blend was the direction that we landed.
Is that it for you, Jerry?
It is.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions for Jerry or their team from the board?
Jerry, this is Dinos Leolio. Just for clarification, on the elevations, is it possible that your designation for the materials are reversed, that the W2 and W1 designations on the drawing were reversed when I look at the exterior finish schedule?
Yes, in fact, they are. My apologies for that.
That's all right. I just wanted to verify that. And may I ask you another question regarding the finish of item 18, which is the mechanical exhaust? It looks like a grill on the west elevation, for instance, on sheet 201.
18,
Yes.
19.
I'm sorry, 19.
Well, 18 and 19, yes.
Okay. Is that, what color is being proposed for that finish?
So what that is intended to show is just a zone where when the spec office space develops for things like bathroom exhaust and makeup air intake, that is the areas where we would propose that they come through with any type of hoods, duct penetrations, and just they would be painted to blend with the metal siding color.
Okay, that answered my question.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure that they would be part of the metal siding color.
Yep.
Okay. I believe that's all I had. Oh, I did have one other question on A203, the perspectives. See that top right image, the color, which is supposed to be the slate? Is that just a matter of, it's so much lighter than anything else that is showing up on the other elevations and perspectives? I was just curious if that was, actually curious as to why.
I mean, you're talking specifically about the metal siding color?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same all the way around. It's just a rendering setting.
Okay,
I'm not
so
sure if that's true south. I have to look at the plan, but it may just be getting more sunlight than the other sides in the rendering software.
okay. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if, so that will be the burnished slate color is what we're saying.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a quick, oh, go
Go
ahead,
ahead, Aaron.
I was just gonna say, I have a quick question about the site plan. I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on along Savage Road. Because it looks like in the L100, if you go back one more, because the plants aren't on, it's just a little easier. One more, back,
I'm sorry.
other way.
Which one?
The two before this one, right there. Yeah. So if we can zoom in on the area right along Savage Road. I don't know if you can or not.
I think I need to get out of full screen to be able to do that. Let me try
I
that.
have it. I guess I'm on a different
Now I
computer.
can zoom in. Sorry. A little more.
All right. Yeah. Go to sheet 24. I think it is. So
Oh,
one
okay.
more.
Oh, am I on the wrong sheet now? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Just get back to 24.
Yeah. I didn't see it switch on me.
That's okay.
This one?
Nope, that's 23. Wait, there you go. And then if you can zoom in on that, it went back to 23.
I don't see 23. I'm not sure. What, are you talking about?
The sheet number at the top, see where
Yeah,
it says 23 out of 202?
Got it. Yeah.
If you go to 24 is the one I was trying to look at.
Let's see.
Oh. There you go. And then if you can zoom in on the area right along Savage Road. Yeah. I was trying to figure out, because there's I guess, is that as clear as we can get? I'm just trying to understand what's going on with the sidewalks along there. Because in this sheet, it looks like there's like a wider sidewalk winding along Savage Road. But then there's some like utilities on top of that. Looks like some backflow preventers, and it's right up on some trees. And then in another sheet, the sidewalk didn't show up. So I was just trying to understand clearly what was going on in that area. I don't know, is that a sidewalk that's existing that's going to be demolished, or is that one that's going in, or I'm not sure what's going on along Savage Road.
Probably the best thing to look at for additional clarification is going to be the site plan without all the trees, so that you can see the existing trees that are intended to be maintained. So there is probably 10 existing canopy trees in that buffer that are required to be maintained. And so there's not a whole lot of room to do a whole lot of anything.
Yeah.
But there is as much can be shown in that area as possible. So if you look at the sheet, any of the civil sheets that don't have the landscape in them,
Like this one that's up right now. See that sidewalk, it just doesn't show up on every plan. So I was trying to figure out if it was actually going in or not. The one that winds along Savage.
yeah, that is a sidewalk that's going in. There is something going on with the pixels and the presentation.
Okay.
Sometimes PDF doesn't, with line weights and such, doesn't show. On my screen, it shows up perfectly. It doesn't show up on my screen the way it's showing up on the presentation. So I'm sorry for that. But there is, you can see the existing trees that the sidewalk winds around. The latest TRC requirement was the sidewalk to the south, planned south of the driveway. But there is a massive hole right there that combines 3 separate storm drainages. I frankly didn't want to put that sidewalk in, and I intentionally omitted it on 3 separate submittals until they absolutely required me to put it in, because I think it's a bad idea without like doing massive. I mean, that's a 36-inch pipe that goes down through there. So I just think it's unless they're going to extend the sidewalk, it just seemed like a kind of pointless exercise to put that sidewalk in. But that being said, I don't know the resolution to what's going to happen between the city zoning staff and traffic and transportation and the DOT, because the DOT just responded that they want certain things, and I don't know how it's going to play out. So the reality is the sidewalk specifically, we tried to keep it out of the right of way. There's just for multiple reasons, but with the existing trees and vegetation, we can't really keep it out of the right of way for a good bit of it. So as you can see, there's in that buffer on that side specifically, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trees, 7 canopy trees right there.
Aaron, you're on mute.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I think it just, we just want to make sure that all the sheets are coordinated, because it looked like in the landscape plan, and again, I'm looking over on another computer screen, so I have it pulled up separately on my own computer.
They are the same. They are the same I cannot explain why they are not showing up correctly.
Okay.
But I've had that happen on PDF before. You see how that back hatch, you see how the hatch in the back where that sidewalk is kind of the wall going around the pond, do you see how it shows up as weird, like on and off?
Yeah.
So that's just a hatching. There's something to do with hatching line weight. There's nothing I can do about that. It doesn't print like that.
Yeah, it's clear on the one on my computer screen that I have pulled up over here. It just looks like there's some plants in the landscape plan on top of the sidewalk. I was just trying to figure out. We just want to make sure everything's coordinated. But
Yeah, it does look that way to me too, Aaron. I'm looking at it on a separated PDF.
yeah.
I think that
Okay.
maybe that having that hatch turned off would help. I just had a question about the pond plantings that you have. Looks like I see the pockets. Is the intent beyond those pockets for everything else to be turf or a sodded area?
Yes, permanently stabilized.
Okay.
Any additional questions?
Just one for clarification. I think this might be more for guidance. I'm looking at sheet 324, and just one of the details showing exposed fasteners to match the fascia. David,
Is that A324?
A324, yes, it's roof detail 1. And this is more for just a guide for Jerry as he goes forward with everything. I know in the past that we have indicated our concerns with exposed fasteners. Is this an indication or a situation where we would allow exposed fasteners?
Are you asking me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think if it's high enough, it might be okay. Is this up at the roof line?
This is at on the soffit.
Yeah.
Jerry, may I ask you, is there any reason that you cannot provide a very similar jointing without the exposed fastener that you have to the right, as far as the way that the panels fasten together?
We can engage the metal sub and explore ways to do some type of clip system.
Okay.
It needs to be coordinated with the fascia system. So
Yeah.
I think we would certainly be open to it as long as there's no constructability issues with the system.
Yeah. You may hear that on the motion, but I did not want you to get out there with construction and all of a sudden on the mock-up panel, we see exposed fasteners, and then we're hitting you with the fact that we don't allow exposed fasteners, or at least discourage them. That's it for me.
Any other questions?
This is Michelle. I'm also seeing exposed fasteners for the resin panel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that these comments would need to apply to the resin panel as well. And we have reviewed and approved mock-up panels with exposed fasteners, but it's infrequently, and only after we've reviewed details. And I remember one of the more recent mock-up panels for the Daniel Island Rec Center that has exposed fasteners in a phenolic type panel, which is probably similar to this resin panel system. The designer there had, very strict rules regarding spacing of those fasteners, which ultimately were reflected in the mock-up panel that we reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't impossible, but we do review it, in a somewhat strict manner,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say.
So maybe the suggestion of exploring options that could eliminate the exposed fasteners.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Any other
I agree.
questions? With none, we do not have anyone registered for the public comment period, nor did we receive any written comments. So David, staff recommendations, please.
Sure. So this is David Meeks, staff comment number 1. It appears that all the staff comments were addressed, other than the removing of the screen wall on the west elevation, but with the explanation they gave, staff is okay with that. Number 2 is remove the note on sheet C1 that states the screen wall will be designed by others and include a detail for this fence somewhere in the set. Number 3, include a detail in the civil set that shows all traffic signs, handicap and et cetera, with a decorative wood or metal, a black post. If your stop sign's in the right of way, then it must remain the metal U-channel breakaway post. I didn't put this in the staff comments, but I do like the redesigned dormer and the consolidated windows, as well as the path going around the pond that was added. And with that, staff does recommend preliminary approval.
Thanks, David. Jerry or Matt, do you have anything to respond or clarify to David's comments?
On C1, screen wall designed by others, I'm assuming that is for the generator and or dumpster.
I believe that's where I saw it.
Go ahead.
The fence that's along the building that's screening the mechanical. I think that's where I saw it.
The intent was that the screen detail for the mechanical would be in kind for the other components on the civil plans. We just didn't include an architectural site plan.
Yeah, any of these kind of smaller details can certainly be handled after our meeting with David.
Yeah.
Unless anyone in the board members, I don't think this will affect the motion. Okay.
I'm just going back to an image of the building during your board discussion.
Thanks. Okay, now we're in board discussion and a motion.
I guess just a comment based on our last meeting. Do we have a lighting plan for this, or have we discussed lighting with this applicant? This is Andy Smith, sorry.
Yeah, well, I have to say that I did have it in the preliminary submittal requirements that it would be okay if they submitted photometrics by final review instead of preliminary. I have since changed that back to preliminary review. These guys might not have seen that since I just changed it last week.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to require that then at this point.
I mean, we did bring it up at the last meeting. I guess a question, and I'd like to see is how are we lighting the site? Or at least staff to look at that and how the light fixtures complement the building or how it's being used on the site. Yes, my other comments kind of revolve around what Aaron was talking about with the buffer. It's kind of hard in the landscape plan to really tell how that, but that you have the crosshatch over the buffer. It's really kind of hard to tell what's going on there. And then I guess in just a general palette comment, I'd like to see, there are some natives and some well-adapted plants. I think it can continue to be revised to be more native. And I think that along the pond area, that these pockets can be expanded along the bank to really kind of minimize the turf, especially going into this pond, and the drainage across these things can act as more of a filter than just going across turf, which has the same value as pavement in some regards, going straight into the pond, and then fertilization, all those other things. It just, a native plant buffer along pond banks would be much better, in my opinion, than just turfing the majority of this pond bank.
May I pursue for a moment Andy's concern as well? I'm looking at the perspectives and I'm noticing that there are light fixtures that are attached to the building. And apparently there's some soffit lights as well. Are those delineated anywhere on the type of fixtures or anything? I would assume that being a part of the building, we would want to see what the design might be.
Yes. Can you see this, Dinos?
Yes, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that page. Okay. Is this also, I don't see anything addressing the soffit lighting.
Did you say soffit?
Yes, is this the soffit lighting here? For some reason, I'm not showing those. I'm sorry, I take that back. There we are.
Any other board discussion?
Or motion?
Well, I guess that the applicant has responded to everything. Andy and Aaron, y'all's thoughts as far as the land planning is concerned and the landscape? From an architectural standpoint, the only thing that I would offer, as I said before, is just to explore the options to eliminate the exposed fasteners. And then,
This is Andy. I think overall, I don't have any issues, with a preliminary approval, unless Aaron has additional comments. I guess I would make a motion for preliminary approval with the comment that the applicant is to provide photometric and lighting at final approval. I apologize. And to expand the planting along the pond banks.
Hold on, slow it down a little bit, Andy. So, sorry,
That's
one
fine.
was applicant to provide photometric plan to staff at final.
Mm-hmm. And lighting cut sheets for the site lighting.
Okay,
To expand the planting along the pond banks to eliminate as much turf as possible.
okay,
To study the plant palette to increase the amount of native planting in the plant palette to the extent possible. Ready?
yep,
And to clean up the landscape sheets so that what's going on in the front, in the buffers, is readily discernible.
okay. Okay. And then do you want to add, is that all of your, and then add Dinos' comments to explore options to eliminate exposed fasteners?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm trying to limit the crowd
No, I
noise.
understand. And then do you want to add in any of staff comments to your motion?
Can you put the staff comments back up, David? Is that, yes, I'd like to include staff comments 2 and 3.
Okay, thanks. So we have a motion for preliminary approval with staff comments 2 and 3, along with board comments. 1, applicant to provide a photometric plan to staff at final review, along with site lighting cut sheets. 2, expand the planting along the pond banks to eliminate as much turf as possible. 3, study the plant palette to increase the amount of native planting to the extent possible. 4, clean up landscape sheets so they're more readable. 5, explore options to eliminate exposed fasteners. That cover it?
Yes, yes, it does.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Michelle, I second.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Now I'll call roll for a vote. Aaron?
Yes, in favor.
Kristen?
Yes, in favor.
Dinos?
Yes, in favor.
Okay, and myself, Erica, yes, in favor as well. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll be moving on to item 2, which Dinos and I are recused from, so Kristen will be taking over as chairperson.
This is actually agenda item 3.
I'm sorry, 3, I apologize, thanks.
Okay, so in agenda item 3 is 1400 Old Town Road for the event pavilion.
Great. Just a little bit of context. This is 1400 Old Town Road. You can see the location here. This is a little closer view showing the approximate boundary and a view into the site. This is looking at the existing entrance. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant. Linda, if you could unmute Jay White, please.
Too late, I'm already here.
Oh, good.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for endeavoring to soldier through. This is y'all's second Zoom meeting, if I understand correctly. So this project, Old Town Creek County Park, is a project we've been working on ever since the master plan level back in 2017. And the application that's before you is one of 3 tonight, as you are well aware. Each of these 3 applications is for the vertical construction on the site. And there will be a 4th application that's forthcoming, no pun intended, that will handle pretty much all the site development issues. There is a lot about this park that is still under design through Stantec and through Charleston County Parks and Recreation Commission. And so as they continue to refine the details of what they expect out of this park, they work on that, but the buildings are at a point that we would like your input and approval at the preliminary level. So the first one that's up before us is the event pavilion. So David, if you could advance the slide, please.
Sure.
Well, 2 slides to the master plan. So could you full screen that so it's a little bit larger, please?
Let's see here. Give me 1 second. There we go.
Great, thank you. So in the upper left of the screen, you see that there is there's a rectilinear area of the site that is that has a black line sort of cordoning it off. Yeah, right where David's moving the hand right now. That is the only portion of the site that is not encumbered by a preservation easement with the historic Charleston Foundation. As y'all might remember from when we presented this now a year ago, this property was originally Asham Farm. It was a very rural horse farm that was owned by Miss Emily Ravenel Farrow, and she bequeathed it to the Historic Charleston Foundation. They in turn sold it through agreement to the county park system for preservation as a rural landscape and as a county park. And this upper left quadrant is the only portion of this park that is not encumbered by the ordinances that preserve its rural and agricultural and equestrian nature. So within that quadrant, we have an event pavilion. You may remember that's the application that's before you now. And then we'll get into two other applications that are within the encumbered area. We'll do that in subsequent agenda items. So David, if you'll advance a few slides. We always love to show these. It's a beautiful landscape. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it firsthand. And the intention with all the buildings that we are proposing for the site is that they maintain the rural, agricultural, equestrian character of the Farrow era. And now that doesn't mean Kentucky Horse Farm. When you look at the buildings that exist on this site, you'll find that they're extremely simple and extremely basic. And we're trying to keep with that spirit. So David, if you'll advance a couple more slides. Actually back one. So what I'd like to do is focus our conversation on comments you all had last time. Now the ones that are appearing in light gray right now are really site related that would be resolved through this subsequent application that's not yet been made. But there are several with this project that are pertinent. As we go through the slides, I'll introduce them each and resolve, hopefully, each one of them, and then explain the updates and slight design changes that have happened since we last saw y'all. David, if you'll go on, please. Go on. I'm going to skip through several of these. If there's any particular question, feel free to interrupt me. You can advance again.
Hey,
Andy?
Jay, this is Michelle.
Yes.
I
Yes.
apologize for interrupting you, but I feel like we may have lost Aaron.
Oh, gosh.
And I just want to verify that we'll have quorum for this application
Yeah.
before we get too far with the applicant's
Sure.
description.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't blame you.
I know that Dinos and Erica had to recuse.
Jay, if you could continue, I'm going to give her a call as your.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
All right. I'll continue on.
Sorry, Jay, thank you.
Yep, she is off the participant.
Yeah. So, shoot. Well, I will need to advance the slides in some way.
He still may be able to hear you, Jay.
David,
I'm sorry. Yes, I can. Did you say?
I just requested control of your screen. Did you see that?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. All right, so let's see if this works. Maybe not.
Oh, I was just going to try and call you. What happened?
Okay, so, oh shoot. We'll get the hang of this, people. So I'm not going to go into the landscaping portions in too great a detail, because what we've done in each of these three applications is we've shown enough landscaping and site development so that the buildings are situated in context. You have some sense of what we intend in terms of landscape and hardscape, but the actual details of those things will be a part of that fourth subsequent application. So any comments y'all have on that, we're really happy to receive them now, and they'll get addressed in that final fourth application. But we didn't want to just show you buildings, floating in the ether. But you can see that the planting palette is very much the way that Miss M had planted the landscape, with a lot of native and adapted species. This building, the event pavilion, has a very distinct relationship with this landscape, because a lot of the event space is situated in the landscape as much as it is inside the building. And I will add very quickly that the way that this building is sited and the way that those outdoor terrace areas are positioned relative to the building is fully intended to block sound from migrating beyond the site into Charlestown Landing and into the adjacent residential areas. I know that sound migration has been an issue all along, and the county is very well aware of that, and so they've directed us to design this accordingly. All right, so David, I think you have control again. If you'll,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's all right.
Where would you like me to go?
That's good right there. So the floor plan is very familiar, very much the same as what it was at conceptual. We have basically two gable roofed masses. One is the event hall with an extended porch, which you'll see in the 3D imagery coming up, and then the other that's to the east, or to the upper portion of the screen, is really the service area. A wedding suite and a very modest catering kitchen, a service yard. Every sort of event pavilion like this needs some sort of service zone, so that's accommodated to the top of your screen, and then the public restrooms. And next, roof plans comparison. They're the same roof as before. You can go on, and again. Okay, let's talk about the materials a little bit. So the material palette really was something that was integral to the architecture, was really decided by the time we came to y'all at conceptual. And it's a fiber cement clad building that has exposed timber trusses, a cross laminated timber roof plane, and we'll get into the detailing of that in a little bit. And then brick masonry as a foundation element there. And this is in keeping with the very simple sort of vernacular material palette that is already present on the site. We were always hoping that even though this building is of a much larger scale than anything else that's on the property, we wanted to make sure that if Ms. M found it on the site, she wouldn't find it foreign. And so that's what these trusses, that's what this building form, its simple gable form, is intended to do. Now there's one really significant change that you can already see in this rendering, is that before, when we showed it to you, we were anticipating that any rainwater would just sheet flow right off the end of the roof. We've changed that based off of comments that we received from y'all at conceptual, and we've added a gutter. But we've also added a series of rain chains. You can see those as light colored lines falling vertically from the eaves in this rendering. Rain chains are not as effective as channeling water as a gutter, but they are effective enough for our application, because we're able to collect that water at grade and flow it across to the sort of storm drainage that will show up in the next application, that when the site application is delivered to you. The reason that we're using chains instead of downspouts is because we have extremely deep eaves. So if you think about the sort of diagonal reach that a downspout would have to travel in order to come back to the wall, it just looked really ungainly. So we felt that the chains were a good way to channel the water without splashing all over the landscape, and without dealing with the sort of sheet flow issues that we would have if you just cascaded right off with no gutter whatsoever. We'll show you some detailing of the fiber cement and other trim as we get into the details a little bit, and I won't belabor those, but obviously if you have any questions, let me know. But we are trying to keep it very simple, very clean, very sophisticated. Next slide, David.
Jay,
Right,
just a reminder, you're at 5 minutes. You have 5
right.
minutes left. Okay.
I will
Thank you,
plow
sir.
through. All right, next.
Thank you. Unless you need more time, you could let me know.
No, that's really all right. If you've looked closely at this comparison elevation, I'll linger here for a quick moment. You can see that we've added detailing to the facades that let the truss configuration read through the exterior wall, and I'll show that in detail. So next. And next. And next. Building sections as per requirements, just really to show you where we're cutting our wall sections. Next. And next. Next. You can just keep going until I yell stop. Okay, let's stop here. Actually, back one. So detail A on this sheet, if you look at that in your own PDFs, you can see the sort of detailing strategy we have that lets the trusses that are on the interior of the building translate through to the exterior detailing. That was a specific request of the board at the time. I think Jeff Johnson suggested it, or maybe it was you, Michelle. I can't remember, but it's been a year ago. But we have this sort of fiber cement detailing at each truss location to sort of, you know, to reflect the rhythm of these very broadly spaced trusses. The reason these trusses can be so broadly spaced is purely because of the cross-laminated timber decking that we're using to support it all. Next. Okay, so this is actually the final image. And a couple other things I would address with you is that you know, we have, because of the circumstance we're in, we would normally have before you in the boardroom examples of the masonry, examples of the fiber cement in a few color ranges we're thinking of, examples of the CLT and so forth. I think we're just gonna have to work around the present circumstance to get that approved, but I did wanna address the building color. So on the site currently, you have a number of buildings that are historic, and they are either stark white, most of the residential structures were that way, or they are sort of a buff color, and most of the barns and stables were colored that way. We're pushing towards a relatively dark tone, you know, sort of a vegetative tone for the new buildings, because it will help to suppress them in the landscape a little bit better. They won't be as noticeable maybe because they'll just sort of, they won't jump out at you. But also when we do this, we will be able to create a demarcation between what is new and what is historic to the site. Of course, that's not quite an issue here with this building because it's situated far away from the historic elements of the site, but we always want people on the park site to realize what's new and what's been there since the Pharaoh era. So that's why you see this tone. Now it's not, we don't have a specific color designated at this point. We will do that in the coming months. That's still something that's being sort of tweaked by us and the owner. But we do intend for the building to have a relatively muted tone in the landscape. And then the trusses and other wood elements would be very lightly stained and then clear finished. And then we have a masonry color that's very much in keeping with the historic masonry that you find on the site. So I think I have covered everything that I intended to say. So I'll open it up to any questions, and hopefully I haven't exceeded my time.
Thank you, Jay. Board discussion, or actually board questions?
Whoa.
This is Michelle, Jay. I had one question about really about the kitchen or serving area indicated in the plan for in the floor plan. Is there still the need for an exhaust for any equipment in that kitchen? Only because I noticed it in the previous application, there was an exhaust vent coming out of the roof, and will we still have that penetration, or has the design evolved so that it is not required?
Yeah, it's no longer required. They've sort of backed this down to a warming kitchen. Most caterers arrive at events like this, they've already got their meals prepared, and they just need prep facilities. So there's no exhaust hood required any longer.
Okay.
Any other board questions?
I just thought of one more. Sorry, Jay. This is Michelle again. What is the thickness that you anticipate specifying for the cementitious siding?
Oh, it'll be the artisan grade.
Okay.
So I think that's 5/8, if I remember correctly.
Okay, great.
Any other board questions?
Sandy, I don't have anything.
Is David? David, you're online still?
Yes.
Should we go into the public comments with the letters, or what? I'm sorry, I'm pretty new at
Yes.
what
Yes,
the agenda is next.
Will be the public comment period next.
Okay.
And then if we're ready to start that, Linda, you could unmute Councilman Shade, please. And when after that, we have a few letters to read as well.
Perfect. Just a reminder on the public comments that it's limited to 10 minutes.
Statute was in Washington Park, which I thought was kind of interesting. It wasn't Washington Park.
I think I hear Councilman Shade.
You know, and Henry was on a meeting with me today with Doug Bostic and others. Who
I don't think he's ready.
accentuate
I
the
hear him.
revolutionary history of
Yep.
this player rather than any other period. It played a more important role in the revolution for protection in any town of our city
I
than
don't
any
think
other time.
hearing him.
So Francis Marion is very appropriate. It's very appropriate.
Linda, you
Let me
can.
ask a question. They want to take the pedestal down and the base.
Councilman Shade, please.
Maybe moving.
Well, unfortunately, it was maybe leave him hanging out there.
They really
Start
just
with the
want
statute.
the statute.
Yeah, you keep him
Okay.
muted and maybe he'll raise his hand if he catches us. But
Okay.
Kristen, if you could read some of the comments.
Yes, we have one public comment. Actually, I only have one, David. It's one letter addressed from Richard Davis at 29 Town Creek Drive in Charleston. And his comments are CCPRC is requested 3 different structures on constructed park grounds. The easements are held by the historic Charleston Foundation, and there are restrictions on new construction. I urge the board to ensure the covenants and restrictions are reviewed to ensure that and abide by the wishes of the original owner who deeded the property to the Low Country Land Trust, who sold it to CCRP. I live in, I apologize, I don't know how to say this name exactly, Wissahickon, and we are already having to deal with wetting sounds from the Charlestown landing. The police have been called before when the sound is too loud, and events in Pavilion in the CCRPC park will be likely to live concert in the background of those who live in the marsh less than 50 yards from the park's marsh boundary. It comes to the quality of life and livability issues of residents versus the income producing opportunity of the CCPRC. And over the years, I have had issues with CCRP use the property as it is violated by the wishes of the owner who originally put the trust into the Low Country Land Trust. Residents of the neighborhood have already begun discussions of legal actions of this event pavilion to be constructed. Other structures, although we believe also violate the easement, are not as intrusive. The event's pavilion will the amplified sound that will be a disruptor to the neighborhood and others around the park. Regards, Richard Davis. And that
Kristen,
is the only letter I believe I have.
I can give you a couple other ones. If you don't have them, I can read them.
Okay, yep, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
David,
that's all right.
I missed that.
So we have 3 other letters for Old Town. The first one is from Jim Hughes. He's saying that my house sits directly across from the park. It's in my backyard. We're plagued by noise whenever there's an event, Wind Down Wednesday, etc. I'm opposed to any construction in the park that will increase noise levels, which an event pavilion will undoubtedly do. Also, can someone please confirm that any work or structures to be built in the park under the proposals do not violate the conservation easement on the property? Thank you. The next one is by Donna Jacobs. She's in favor of the project. She said, this is very exciting to see these plans come before the DRB. I'd like to
The first paragraph specifies all the ward. Revolutionary
Then it
War.
says, or person.
The second
Hi, this is Peter
paragraph
Shayan.
says no.
You don't hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
do.
I'm sorry, I'm in a meeting with the mayor with a bunch of people, and I just wanted to say very quickly that this went before the West Asheville Revitalization Commission, and we were very pleased with these plans. The only concern that someone raised was making sure the property and the buildings were soundproof enough, since we're going to have some kind of events there involving music. But just wanted to show our appreciation for the county and the work they've been doing with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Councilman.
Okay. So good, we got to hear from him. I'm going to continue with Donna Jacobs' comments. She says, I especially like the truss detail on the entrance to the pavilion. It reminds me of the market entrance, packing shed or a train depot for loading vegetables and so forth. It speaks to the historic use of the land, which was truck farming. Could some additional detail be added to the extension off the pavilion in order to continue this architectural conversation? Would it be possible to consider adding a small representation of this detail to the learning center and the maintenance shed to tie all the buildings to this conversation about the historic land use? Finally, there have been a lot of comments from the neighborhood about noise levels from events. Can we make sure that some modern soundproof material is used here? Bass reverberation from amplified music is quite a problem. I would like to thank the board for their consideration of the details. And then one final letter is from Gerald Rittenberg. He is opposed to the project. Well, actually, I'm sorry, he says, I don't object to the concept of an event pavilion, only to the extent that amplified sound, music, and so forth are allowed during the approved hours until 11. My neighborhood is already subject to the amplified music originating from Charlestown Landing and or tented events at Old Town Creek County Park. Municipal officials must institute decibel levels which would recognize that events which include amplified sound, music are virtually in the middle of residential neighborhoods, and the occupants deserve consideration that their tranquility not be ignored when events take place at Old Town Creek County Park. And that is it for the public comment period.
Thank you so much, David. And I think city staff recommendations.
Okay.
You'll be next as well.
Okay, staff comment number one. Staff likes the design and the detailing of the event pavilion. It appears the mechanical on the northeast side of the building has a screen on two sides, but not the side away from the building, and it should be. Number three, the landscape plan looks nice. The applicant is providing an ample amount, and we all like the use of pollinators, which are quite a bit being used. Number four, DRB would normally like to see preliminary review, a plant list that calls out the plant labels on the landscape plan. A list was provided, but it does not call out the plant labels. And number five, be consistent with the building names. For example, on the master plan, it's called restroom and program center, but learning center on the blow up plans. But with that, staff does recommend preliminary approval.
Thank you, David. I guess we could go into applicant responses for any of the cities or comments that were made from the public.
Sure, and thank you for that. Staff comments are well placed. There's probably quite a lot about the planting plan that is pending this subsequent application. So we'll make sure that gets folded in so that y'all can review that closely. But we're glad that you see us using a lot of pollinators. That's a hot topic these days, and we're happy to respond to that. As far as public comment is concerned, the majority of that comment really revolved around issues of livability, noise, and such as that are really matters of use and beyond our control and really beyond the jurisdiction of the board, although we do understand that they're important community issues. We've spoken extensively with Charleston County Parks and Recreation Commission, and they have been in dialogue with the neighbors, both immediate and distant, and they are aware of these issues. They're aware that they're part of the city, and they're aware that they serve the entire county, and they intend to do that equitably. When it comes to the arrangement of the sale of the property, as I mentioned at the outset of the presentation, the property was bequeathed to the Historic Charleston Foundation and then turned over to CCPRC with restrictions. And those restrictions are being abided by. And that's been vetted very closely with HCF over the Historic Charleston Foundation over the course of this design exercise. And the property in question, the building in question right now, is actually beyond that encumbered area, very specifically. So, but other than that, we appreciate y'all's comments and dialogue.
Thank you, Jay. I see a hand raised. I don't know. David, is that from someone on
Let me see.
our staff? Otherwise, we can just go straight into board discussion. Maybe it was someone on the board.
I'm not seeing it. What's the name? Do you see it?
It didn't say a name. It was just kind of floating.
Oh.
Um,
I'm afraid I don't see it, but so we can continue.
Okay. Now we're in board discussion or a.
Yeah.
Any
This is
comments from the
Andy.
board?
I mean, I think overall the tone of the design is very appealing, and I'm supportive of the direction. The overall concept of the landscape plan, I think, is still good. I know that there are some unique design considerations from a landscape point of view of the use of the property and the historic context. And, I'd like to see that developed more and have more information with that, even in, what's focused around, even though this application is focused on the building, I would like to kind of see what the snapshot of the landscape around the building is more developed. I guess we'll get more information with that at the master plan level. I'm not saying that some of these details we won't be, revisiting when we have those discussions. I do like the some of the details that we're seeing here. I'd like to see how the rain chains kind of function at a ground level, and what the base of that rain chain is going to be like and how it's going to be treated. That's kind of a concern of mine, because that can wash out and create a lot of washout as those chains hit the ground, having worked with those in the past. So that's a detail of concern for me. If we're focusing primarily on the building, I think we have the detail that we need, and I think it's a very attractive building. And I understand that the public has some concerns, but I do feel like that those are more of a use concern rather than what's generally in our purview. But I do urge the owner to take these concerns into consideration. I guess is the only thing I would like to say towards those. But overall, I think I'm in supportive of the design.
Yeah, this is Erin Stevens speaking, and I think you bring up a good point, Andy, and I'm flipping through the drawings right now. I may have missed it, but I think I agree the landscape around the building is nice, but I wish I knew more about the landscape of the parking lot that's right next to the building, and will there be implementations to kind of facilitate an approach to the building as you're driving up. But I only saw the landscape plan really right up on the building, so I assume that's something that we would we would be able to see in the future, or I don't know how this is exactly going to be phased out, but I think a little more context than what's immediately adjacent to the building would be really helpful. And I also second your comment about rain chains. They can be great design features, but somewhere like here where we get such intense rainstorms, they don't handle water as well as they do in places that have, you know, lighter misting rain. So again, I'm not saying they can't work. You just have to, I think we want to be careful with the design details of those as well.
This is Michelle. Are you, Aaron and Andy, are you comfortable with seeing what those details adjacent to the building are with the subsequent master plan application that the applicant will be putting forward at a later time?
As far as like the landscape for the parking lot and the
Yes.
greater context, I'm fine with that. That's fine with me. Andy, I don't want to speak for both of
I'm fine. I'm fine with it. Just with the applicant, I guess, understanding that, you know, decisions made at that level may affect this application. You know, and
Okay. I mean, I think that this is a very positive, nice application. I think the architecture is very well planned and thought out. I agree. I would like to, this is Michelle, by the way, if I didn't already identify myself again. I am also interested in understanding what the rain chain detail is like and how it hits the ground and what that detail is for any swale, you know, or holding area that's required and how it eventually makes its way to the storm runoff strategy. I'm also concerned a little bit about the chain as a material and, you know, if it will rust over time and, you know, just concerned about maintenance of it. But I would like to make a motion for preliminary approval for this new pavilion, including staff comments to complete the mechanical screen enclosure in the northwest area of the building, including staff comment number 4 to provide more plant labeling information and details of the plantings around the building at the master plan level. This would include rain chain details at the ground level and how that drainage strategy is incorporated into the overall site storm drainage.
Michelle, can we make that a study of landscape rain chains and downspouts? What was the last part of it? I'm trying to write that down. Study of landscape rain chains.
I mean, it is a study, but I want to be specific in that if the rain chain is provided, we need to see details of it. So
rain chains, downspouts, rain chain details, and downspout. How about that?
Sure. And then I would like to include. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say number 5. Did you want to include number 5?
I'm sorry, what was number 5 staff comment again?
It was about calling the restrooms and program center on the master plan, but
cleaning up the
allowing
verbiage.
it to be called learning center. Yeah. So we can
That's
include
fine.
number 5,
Okay.
2,
Yes.
4, and 5. Okay.
Yes. And I do want to asterisk the staff comment number 4 with the board comment elaboration of providing rain chain details and more details of the landscape and how the building is connected to the surrounding area, that you know, the board reserves the opportunity to revisit some of the building comments at that master plan application level.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion for staff comments 2, 4, and 5 with board comment, study and details of landscape rain chain details and downspouts to the surrounding areas at the master plan level. Is that enough to be said, Michelle?
Yes, it's really the master plan application, I think. Yeah. But
Master plan
right.
level. Oh, okay,
Yes.
application. Got it. Okay, David, do you need for me to repeat that?
Yeah, if you could one last time, please. Appreciate it.
Okay, so motion for staff comments number 2, 4, and 5 with board comment, study and details of landscape, rain chains down details and downspouts to the surrounding areas at the master plan application.
Is there a second?
This is Andy. I'll second.
Okay, and we have to do a roll call for all in favor, and that would be, gosh, hold on, Michelle. Oh, you already did it, and Erin?
Yes,
Stevens?
in favor. Yes, in favor.
Okay, and myself, I guess I'll do myself. I am in favor. So it's unanimous.
Did Andy go? Oh,
I seconded the motion.
Andy seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
Erin and I, and Michelle was the
Perfect.
initiator of the.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay. Are we going on to the next one with Jay as well?
Yeah.
You're not free of me yet.
That's okay. No, I'm glad to see you. Okay,
Oh,
so
thanks.
item number.
Nice to be seen.
Exactly. Item number 4 will be the 1400 Old Town Road for the Learning Center. And if you'd like, Jay, you have 10 minutes or less on that.
Yeah, David, do you want to provide any sort of introduction or just plow on into it?
Yeah, you can proceed on. Let me get to your slide.
Okay.
Oh.
So while he's advancing to that point, the Learning Center is a combination of 2 buildings, one existing, one new, that serve the educational mission of the park service at this facility. So you can proceed and to the next few slides.
Well, I don't know what happened to this one. I apologize.
Oh, there's no telling what happened to it. I'll proceed on, and then we'll clarify. So this is smack dab in the middle of the site. The drawing that's on the screen now, with the big bright red circle, shows where the Learning Center is. So this is basically the hub of the park. It is the fee station for the park. It's the first point of public interaction for visitors to the facility, and it also accommodates mostly school groups, of which they have an impressive number. So David, if you'll proceed, please.
Oh, sorry. Here we go. Okay.
All right, and next. And next. Next. So let me stop here on this landscape plan. So the building that's in the upper left is what is colloquially called the rain hut. It's an existing building from the Pharaoh era. We're lightly renovating it. It is one of the protected buildings on the site, and although we have received concurrence from HCF to modify it according to the new program. So when you come to buy a ticket to participate in the activities of the park, you'll come here. School groups will be filtered through this building as they enter the facility. And then they'll exit into a plaza area, and then you can see that the Learning Center is sort of in the middle of this drawing. It's mostly an open air classroom. It also encompasses group restrooms for the entire park. All the restrooms for the entire park are consolidated here. In an effort to maintain a light touch on the historic landscape, they've consolidated pretty much all the pragmatic functions of operating a modern day suburban park into this one site. You can go on a couple more slides. And again. So these are views of the existing rain hut. It is, while it is within the protected area, it is a very strange little building, for historic reasons, we're maintaining a very light touch to the structure, as I mentioned before. So continue on, David. And on, you'll notice that there's a mixture of siding types on the building. We're actually addressing that in this application. There were a couple of comments that came about. You can proceed to the next slide, David. One particular comment that came up during conceptual is that you can see in the upper image the previous design. We've created a new entry point at the top of a 1 to 20 grade slope walkway, elevated walkway, that enters in on basically the west elevation of the building. That was not quite centered on that elevation. I think, Michelle, I think this is something that you had mentioned needed to be corrected, and we've done that. It's hard to see in these smaller views, but we have recentered that entry on the axis of the building. It was easy to do, and it brings people into a lobby and sort of gallery space. So next, David. So you can see that what we've done is that from previous, where we were keeping the siding as it was, to current, we are going to reconfigure the exterior walls to where they're consistently fiber cement, board, and batten. There's a mixture of lap siding, wood lap siding, T111 panel, and board and batten on this building because it was built in sort of a higgledy-piggledy manner, and so we're trying to make it consistent because this is the front door to the park now. Next. And then you can see now the reoriented west elevation or southwest elevation that shows the aligned entry point, this about the axis of the building. Next. And then some subtle modifications to really what is a rear elevation. This elevation would be buried in the landscaping. And we've cleaned it up a little bit and consolidated HVAC into a screened enclosure that you can see at the bottom. Next. And then some detailing to show how we're approaching that. This elevated 1 to 20 walkway is going to be wood framed. It's going to be clad in black locust decking. Black locust is a North American hardwood that's highly durable. It'll be allowed to gray out as you might expect with some exotic hardwoods like Ipe or Garapa. But black locust is, if you've ever tried to work with it, it's very hard and very durable, very insect resistant. And we are using it in a limited capacity, mostly on walk surfaces in and around the buildings. And so you see it here. And next. And then just a little bit of, we're adopting very standard board and batten detailing on this building, nothing really special. We don't want the rain hut to really jump out at you as a work of architecture. It's really just part of the agricultural landscape. Next. And then moving on to the Learning Center, which adopts some cues from the event pavilion, but is a much more subtle building. We don't need this to be the grand statement building. Next. So the building is situated right on the edge of Miss Farrow's riding ring. And you can see it sort of impressed in the landscape on the top image there. Next. And so it's broken into basically two parts as it was before, enclosed restrooms and storage, and then an open air classroom space that is mostly geared towards school groups. Now, when it's not being used for school groups, it'll basically be a picnic pavilion. Next.
Wait, hold on, Jay. It's looks like it may have froze.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. I think that means automatic approval, if I remember right.
I heard the hard drive kick in as soon as I tried to advance. So it's clocking now. Just give me a little bit of time here.
Well, I can make up things to say. So, so when we get there, you'll see, you got a glimpse of it before, the material palette of the building is very similar to that of the event pavilion. It's a metal roof. And then here's a blow up plan. You can advance beyond that if you can. You'll see in,
Sorry, it's trying
to catch up to you. Catch up to one of us, I can't remember. So it's, the exterior of the restroom module is clad in fiber cement siding. It's a V-groove siding, which was a little different from last time when we showed it to you at conceptual. It was just a standard lap siding, but it also is a fiber cement, 5/8 inch thickness V-groove siding. We're mitering the outside corners and inside corners also, just for a clean look. We're using wood trusses with exposed plate connectors. And then you can see in the teaching pavilion, you see these rectilinear bars on right and left of the screen. Those are masonry and concrete, and the columns that support the roof rest upon those. And 2 are at one height and 2 are at a lower elevation. And the purpose for that is that the higher ones are at a good sort of work surface height for children. And then the lower ones are at a good seating height for children. So that's why when we finally get to the 3D views of the building, you'll see that those brick and concrete plinths are at different elevations. It's programmatically driven. They would do experiments in here with, microscopes. It's going to be a messy space. You're talking about a lot of pluff mud around. You can also see in this view the circular forms that are underneath the eave. Here, our water management strategy relies upon the use of rain barrels that would be fed into the adjacent gardens. That also is a teaching opportunity for CCPRC. And how exactly those get implemented is still really under consideration. It's really something that the landscape master plan has to resolve. Would those rain barrels be plumbed into an irrigation system, or would they be independent and more demonstrational in nature? That really remains to be seen. All right, so you caught up now, David?
Yes, I believe so.
All right. Oh, sorry, I could have advanced you like 5 slides ago. Keep rolling. Okay, so here you see the material palette that I referred to earlier. On the less significant buildings on the site, we are employing snap lock roofing panels, which are a form of standing seam, but a little more agricultural in character, really, and more in keeping with the simple sort of agricultural and vernacular nature of Old Town Creek County Park. And here you can definitely see the different elevations of the brick plinths. I was pointing at my screen so you could tell what I was pointing at. And they're at different heights. You can see the higher one is at the bench height, and the other one is at the seat wall height. And next. Before our previous and current elevations, very much the same. Next. You can see the inclusion of the rain barrels, and we're trying to space those in accordance with the architecture so that they look very purposeful. Next. And next. And next. All right, some very quick detailing. Next. Next. So it's a very straightforward building, wood frame, concrete slab on grade, very vernacular in nature. Next. See the arrangement of the rain barrels and the chains leading down to them. Next. And then a final rendering. Here, the color of the siding appears a little bit darker than it did if you compare it to the event pavilion, but that's really just the nature of the rendering, the shadow values based off of where the building sits. But we think that pretty much these buildings would be of the same tonal family. And that's it, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're at the board questions. Do we have any questions from the board?
I have one quick question. In the landscape or site plan, it looks like, and I can see a little peek of it in this rendering, there's a fence that goes around the whole yard. Do we have a detail of what that fence looks like? Is this what it's gonna look like, or is that just illustrative?
Oh, that's just an illustration. That'll be part of the next application.
Okay.
The key is that it will sort of outline the original horse ring.
Okay. I think it shows up in one of the landscape plans if you're trying to find it, David.
Yeah, it was going slow, sorry.
One more back, I think, is where it shows up.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Any other board questions?
This is Michelle. I have a couple questions, Jay.
Mhm.
Only because I'm just thinking about your MEP systems. You know, I see that there is a mechanical mezzanine, and you've included a couple of louvers on your elevations. But since this is an open air like classroom structure, and I'm seeing that your toilets are already exhausted, what is the mechanical function? Is it for the storage, or?
Oh, no, it's to condition the storage area and the restrooms. Even though they're exhausted, they do get AC.
Okay. Okay. And then my second question, and this is super nitpicky, but I was just curious if you are required to have water fountains here. I just didn't see them in the plans, and I'm seeing that your sinks are outside. You know, you've done such a good job to integrate all of the utilities and the MEP required for this type building. So I just wanted to make sure you didn't overlook anything.
No, that's a great question. And with the proximity of the creek, we feel that we satisfy IBC fully on that.
Okay.
They can just, no, I'm kidding. There'll be site fountains
Okay,
in the
that's what I
landscape
was
plan.
wondering.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, because they have to satisfy both this building and the rain hut. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's great.
I actually had one question as well. It looked like on one of those, the exterior in the rear where it has the overhang, do you have the rain chains there as well? Yes, right there.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay, so, okay. Any other board discussion, questions? And I don't know, David, if we have any public comments, or we did them all already?
Yeah, we did all the public comments.
Okay.
Already. Should I go to staff recommendations?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, I'm stuck again. Give me a second here. Well, I have the hard copy too. I can read that. It's stuck again. I apologize. Okay. So this is David Meeks, staff comments. Number one, staff likes the design and the detailing of the, I'm sorry, that's the last one. I apologize. Staff thinks this is a great design for the Learning Center and situated nicely in the landscape. Well, you've already explained this one. I was asking why the two different heights in the brick walls of the support for the support columns in the outdoor classroom. I was suggesting them all be lower for extra seating area, but I like your explanation of the higher one for a work surface. So I'm going to scratch staff comment number 2. Staff comment number 3, the landscape plan for this set is incomplete and does not call out all plant material or a plant list. So we can't properly assess this one. But even with that, and given the fact that this is going to be more developed during the master plan phase, we do recommend preliminary approval.
Thank you, David. Okay, board discussion, or since we don't have any applicant response, we'll go right to the board discussion. And a motion if anyone would like to do so.
Well, Jay, do you have any response to the staff comments?
No, none. They're all well taken. Thank you.
Okay. Board discussion.
This is Andy. I mean, I guess I like the idea of the rain barrels and them showing the rain barrels. I like to see you know, how that's further resolved, especially with this being the learning center. I guess my comments are very much the same as with the event pavilion, is that, you know, there's not a lot to comment on in the landscape. I understand that the master plan level, I think, will answer a lot of these questions, but we're still, I think there's a lot of integration that you know, in this courtyard and what's going on there and what's the demonstration that's going on there that really may relate back to these event spaces, or, you know, this space. You know, little concerned that we're maybe missing opportunities. As you said, this is the first building somebody sees when they come into the park, you know, for admission, that sort of thing. So how that parking lot and those experiences coming up to this building are resolved, or is still, I guess, kind of troubling to me, of, you know, that we're going forward with this, and I just don't want the applicant to you know, if we come back at the next level and say, hey, you know, this is not something we saw, or what you're presenting now kind of changes what we were thinking then, you know, I'm just wondering what our path forward is at that point, you know, that if, you know, we've approved this, you know, David, I assume that we would hold off on going to final until we've seen the master plan, and kind of had those comments.
Yeah, these are more building related, and if things change around the perimeter of the building, or, you know, I think that's fair game for any comments you have when they come back in with the site for preliminary. You can get more specific.
All right, I just, you know, I mean, I like the architecture that's being presented. I like how we're starting to see, you know, a potential resolution to the rain chain and the learning center. You know, I don't know if that's applicable or something we could study on the event center. You know, it could have some interesting potential application over there. I think there's, as I said, some to be resolved in the landscape and these approaches, but, you know, building wise, I think I'm, again, supportive of the direction that we're going here.
Any other board comments? Discussion? I wanted to say one thing as well, is that I like the blend of the color palette with the landscaping and just all the buildings. And the rain hut, I was curious on, and I forgot to ask what the color palette was going to be for that. Is that going to be that light tan color?
No, because we're recladding it, we were proposing to paint it similarly to this building that's on the screen right here. Mm-hmm.
Great. Erin or Michelle?
Well, I feel comfortable with making a motion for preliminary approval of the new learning center here, with the condition that preliminary approval of the master plan, site plan, landscape plan application for this project be achieved before final approval is given of the structures.
Hold on, let me write this down.
Does that make sense, David?
Yes, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Michelle, can you preliminary approval
with
including landscape with the condition?
Yes, with the condition that the application for the master plan, site plan, you know,
Application for master plan
and landscape
and parking.
must achieve preliminary approval level.
Approval level.
Before final approval
Final approval.
of the new learning center is granted.
Or you want to say all the buildings?
I would like to say all the buildings, yeah. I mean, it may mean that I have to go
Approval
back
of
and
all
modify that prior motion, but
the buildings.
yes.
Okay. Did we also want to include number 3 from staff recommendations?
Yes, I mean, it speaks to really the application, the overall application for the landscape plan, you know, at the master plan level. So, but yes, we can
I'm
make that.
comfortable with how it's been stated. I mean,
Without including number 3?
yeah, I think that
Okay.
how the motion's been made covers that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
Aaron,
a
are
motion for
you-
preliminary. Yep. Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
No, I agree.
Okay.
Okay. So motion for preliminary approval based on application for master plan, landscape plan must be achieved in preliminary approval level before final approval for all buildings.
This is Andy. I'll
that-
second that.
Okay. And let me do roll call for the rest. Aaron Stevens
Yes, I agree.
and Michelle. You did the motion. I will also agree. Yes, I agree as Kristen Kraus. I think it's unanimous.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you so much.
All right, moving on to the next one.
Yes, the last one, or excuse me,
Wait.
number 5. Sorry.
There's another?
You have
I'm
one
kidding.
more.
I'm
You
kidding.
have
I'm kidding. I'm
the,
kidding.
you have
I'm
the
kidding.
maintenance building.
What's that?
Preliminary request for the maintenance building.
So Jay, whenever you're ready, you can.
Okay. So the maintenance hub. So this is this is something that we are endeavoring to make invisible. It's a pragmatic and programmatic requirement of the property. They have to have somewhere to keep their maintenance equipment and house their maintenance staff. And this hub is so called because it will also serve several other parks at this end of the county. You know, CCPRC has facilities stretched from one end of Charleston County to the other, and they don't really have that many centralized maintenance areas. So this will help share the burden of the centralized maintenance area that is actually at James Island County Park, which most of us have never noticed. There's a neighborly precedent to this. At Charleston Landing, we designed a very similar facility back in 2006, and it's been there ever since. And probably you've never seen it, even though it is only 30 yards away from Founders Hall. We do this by tucking these things into the forest canopy, and we underplant to basically make them invisible. And because of its purely pragmatic nature, it is a pre-engineered metal building. There's a new pre-engineered metal building. It's part of the equation. It's about 2,500 square feet. And then we're taking one of the original horse stables that is already being used to store landscaping implements, and we're adding a gable roof shed element to the rear of it. So David, if you'll proceed, please. We don't need to belabor this side. You can go on. So the maintenance facility is basically in the bottom center of the screen, right where David's showing, moving the hand right there. It is the closest building it's adjacent to you is the main house, but it's still probably about 75 yards away from that. All the staff parking for the site will be consolidated in this area. So all staff will park here and then walk to their site locations, whether they're housed in the at the Learning Center or in the historic main house from the Pharaoh period. Next. So here you can see to the bottom left, you see the new pre-engineered metal building. In the upper center, you see the existing stable 2, I think we call it, and then a small open air timber addition to its rear. All this area is enclosed by a privacy fence and then heavily vegetated to hide it from public view. There's no reason for the public to ever see this. And the intent is that they never will. Go on. And on. And onward. And so let's get into the addition to the barn. So here's the stable. If you go on to sheet 9, here's the stable as it currently stands. It's a very lightly constructed building. And there were times in which CCPRC wanted to know whether they could retrofit it for public use, but honestly, it's just so lightly built, it couldn't be seismically retrofitted. So it's a storage building now. Go on. And you can see to the upper portion of the screen, or really to the southwest of the building, there's a very small gable addition that is really just meant to shelter farm implements. Go on. You can see it there in the lower view. It's simple, nominal wood framing, very basic. It's positioned where the eave height is lower than the existing building. If you go on, this actually is a freestanding structure. It does not physically connect to the existing building. It only flashes into it for to keep the rainwater out, but it's a completely freestanding element. Both the new piece and the existing building will receive a new roof to match all the other new roofs that we're placing on the buildings, mostly just to make sure it's watertight. The existing roofing is really shot, and it's only a suggestion to keep rainwater out. But considering the implements that they want to keep in here, they do want to keep it watertight. Go on. So front elevation obviously doesn't change other than the inclusion of a new fence type. Go on. Here you can see the northwest elevation, very similar to the opposite side. Go on. And here's some details that sort of show the relationship between the existing eave height and the new eave height, and the detailing of that. It's all very simple. We don't want to overstate anything here, because again, this is a practical addition to the landscape that the public should never see. If they see this, they're in the wrong spot. Go on. Here you can see the building is self-supporting and actually does not physically connect to the existing construction. Go on. And here's sort of an exaggerated three-dimensional view of it. It appears very heavy, but it actually is a relatively long span. Because we need to make sure that we have both the width and the clear height to get the farm implements in here. And next. Now we're moving on to the pre-engineered building. Go on. This is its approximate location, and it'll actually be tucked into the woods that are at the right edge of the right-hand view here. Go on. Very basic, because this is a pre-engineered building, its actual design on the interior will be left up to the company that is contracted to provide that. So we have a suggestion of the floor plan in here. We have the world's largest single occupant restroom, but that'll probably change as things refine. Really what we want to focus on is the exterior volume of this structure. It's completely metal clad, box rib exterior metal panels, and a snap lock stainless steel roof, and a steel structure. So go on. It is broken. You have a high eave and a low eave. You'll see that in the images coming up. Go on. There it is. So you have an open bay that's very high because they have some rather large equipment they want to tuck under there. And then the reason that the eave breaks is purely to reduce the mass of the building to the extent that it's possible, because the smaller it is, the easier it is to hide. Go on. See the open bay doors, all very pragmatic. Go on. Some sections, and you can click through the next few. So these drawings that you've probably seen show that it's a box rib metal panel, very similar to very many industrial or agricultural buildings you've seen before. In a lot of ways, this is built very much like a typical modern day pole barn. Like I mentioned before, the high eave is purely to give shelter to the tallest apparatus they have. And then apparatus, that's a term from fire stations, farm implement that they have. And then the rest of it is as low slung as possible. So that's really it. Any questions?
Thank you, Jay. Board questions? I have a couple.
I don't have any.
On the maintenance building, what's the square footage of that?
This building on the screen, I think, is about 2,500 square feet.
Okay. And then the little stable is being remodeled, is not new construction?
The stable is existing. The only thing that's new construction is that open air shelter that's the gable roof shelter that's positioned to the rear of it.
Okay.
But the rest
And
of
they're
it
remodeling the rest of it, or
No,
just going to leave it the way it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just as it is.
I had another question about the pathways. You were mentioning that the parking lot is next to the maintenance building. If we could look at that.
There you
How
go.
far of a walk is that from parking lot for staff, and how are they going to get, what kind of pathway is taking them to either the historic house or the event building or the learning center?
They'll use the existing network of pathways that are on the site. You know, there's a lot, this site is big enough that a lot of their transport is in golf carts.
Okay.
So, you know, we don't want to make it too terrible. It'll be separated from the pedestrian walking trails that encircle the property, but it won't be too far. You know, the intention was to consolidate the parking here so you don't have random staff vehicles scattered about the landscape.
Sure. That's a great idea. And that was my final question, is like walking trails and all that'll be more implemented in the new updated landscape plan when you get there. Okay.
That's
and
correct.
Then signage, was signage something that, so when people are walking, they know where they're going, and, you know, signage to the learning center or signage to the event space?
So signage is going to be a wholesale package. It may actually be included in this site package that we've been making frequent reference to. But, you know, the CCPRC is in the midst of a interpretive design mode right now. And that they're going to be implementing a series of interpretations, both in signage and other displays, and signage will be part of that. And by the time they get all that worked out, it'll be in the site package that's forthcoming.
Great. Well, thank you. Any other board questions?
I have a minor question, Jay. This is Michelle again. I'm seeing on the elevations of for the maintenance building on the porch side that there is a louver shown. And I understand it's opposite, you know, but I'm not seeing it in the rendering on page 26. So I just wanted to understand that I was understanding where this louver really is.
I'm sorry, Michelle, want me to get there? Which building?
Yeah,
is it?
if you go to page 26 of the maintenance building perspective, there is not, I don't see the louver that is shown on the flat elevation of this side of that building.
Okay.
Does that make sense? If you go next
Yeah.
to page 22, David.
Oh no.
Is it really there? You know, is it really there? It's just a picky thing. Is it really there? Or
the gable louver there.
Yes.
We're not entirely sure. I think probably it will not be there
Okay.
because there won't be a ventilated attic as part of this.
Okay. Okay. And then my, I only had a question about the presence of the gutters and downspouts. It looks like you're guttering and downspouting the service door, side of the building because, you do have the parking lot on that side, but it looks like this southwest elevation side is not guttered because you're probably flowing it just to grade. Is that correct? That's like the back side of the building.
Yeah, that's correct, because this building is intended to be, sort of, nestled into the landscape. And so if we were to place a gutter there, it would very quickly clog with vegetation.
Okay. Okay.
I actually had one other question I forgot to ask. Are you going to have live animals on the property at all? When you say stable and like that, is there any
Oh no,
animals?
it's a stable. It was a stable traditionally, but no, I don't
So
think
no
that,
horses.
I don't think they have any intention to have horses out there now. I'm not sure that they've precluded that forever and ever, but no, we're not making any provision for that right now.
Okay. Any other board questions? Erin?
No.
Anyone? Okay.
We've got no public comments.
Okay.
We can
Nope.
go into staff comments.
City staff, yes, sir.
All right, staff comments. This is David Meeks. Number one, the applicant did a nice job of situating the maintenance building in with the existing stables and away from the main active area. Number two, the applicant is providing a 6-foot high wood screen fence around the parking lot, which is good. Number three, staff appreciates the oversized tree islands in the parking lot. That's all we had to say, and we recommend a preliminary approval.
Excellent. Any comments back from the applicant?
No, we appreciate the commentary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board discussion and a motion?
And I'm ready to make a motion, I guess, with the same provisions that we had on the other two, is the, the final approval for these buildings should be withheld until the master plan and landscape plan has been reviewed
Exactly.
and approved at a preliminary level.
Yes, sir. I can do exactly what we said before, if you'd like.
And then that's fine. And then I just, in the landscape plan, because these buildings don't have gutters or downspouts, how the water off of these buildings are being handled, that it's just not hitting the ground and washing out. So roof stormwater strategy.
Study or provide?
That's provide a solution for the roof stormwater
Provide.
strategy.
Provide solution.
That's correct.
Or, I'm sorry, provide solution for water.
For
stormwater.
Stormwater, yes.
For stormwater. Okay, so we have, again, preliminary approval with the board comment of application for master plan, landscape plan must be achieved and approved in preliminary approval level before final approval of all of the buildings. And number two would be to provide a solution for the roof storm water drainage. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Erin.
Okay, and Michelle, would you like to?
Yes, in favor. Thank you.
And Kristen Kraus in favor as well? Majority. in favor. I think that we are officially done. Jay, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good evening.
All right, thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
We
Jay.
have some, I think we have some minutes to do, right, David? Or
There's
no, we
one
still
more
have one more.
application.
We have one more.
Yeah. And,
If I could just say
and
something.
is,
I
Yes, sir.
am going to get in touch with Erica. I already did and told her to come back on, but until she comes on, I'm going to take a 3-minute break.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Yeah, let's take a break
take a
until
3-minute break.
Erica is back. We'll be right back.
I'm back.
Oh, good. We're taking a 3-minute break, Erica.
Okay.
I think you're all back. Hi, Heather. Can you hear me?
Are we ready to move on to our last item? Or not last, but last project?
I think so.
I'm ready.
Agenda item number 6, 162 Seven Farms Drive, requesting conceptual approval for an addition and renovation of an existing public supermarket. David, go ahead.
This is one slide I have just to show the people who haven't seen this where it is. Here's the location of the existing Publix grocery store. They're proposing a renovation and a new addition. With that, I'll turn it over to Heather.
Heather, we can't hear you.
It doesn't look like you're muted, Heather.
Yeah, something must be wrong with audio.
Take 2.
There you go.
Set. Okay.
And Heather, I'm about to put you on the clock for 10 minutes. Is that enough time or do you need more?
Due to the departure from the previous design, we would like to request more time.
Okay, 15 adequate?
Yes, we can do it in 15. We all
Great.
want to get back to life. Okay. So yes, thank you. My name is Heather Nifong with Little. I do have Steve Manley with Manley Land Design on the phone as well with David Rubin, but to consolidate time, I'm going to move through the presentation and let them be available for questions. David, if you don't mind, go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I wanted to give you a little history and recap. We did present this project back in 2017, and a few of the major comments that were given to us by the board were the tower elements needing to be 3D elements, the use of real windows as opposed to faux windows, taking the park a little bit further with sweeps through the park was a suggestion, more glazing on Island Park Drive facade. And then there was also the recommendation of the interior program spilling out into the park space, looking at this site from all four sides, and then a better solution to the 3 tower elements, really looking at hierarchy. So again, we haven't presented since 2017, so therefore we really took the comments very seriously. However, we knew a lot of these comments might pose some significant operation challenges. So it took us a while, but we got creative and have found a couple solutions that are very unique, unprecedented, but we feel like the design is much, much stronger and provides a huge improvement on the park and just the offerings to Daniel Island community and the public's customer. So if you look on the slide, you can see the zoomed out view, the existing Publix is to the south, the expansion going to the north of the page towards Island Park Drive, and you can see the park at the very top. The park, again, has departed from trees to really activating the site. The purplish hue that you see there is actually an outdoor pavilion that connects to the inside with a grassy lawn in the back. Oh yes, thank you, David. You know, hopefully for picnics or families to play. And then the new crosswalk on Island Park Drive has been added since we presented back in 2017. And we have used that access and strengthened it and continued it along our site, ending in a tower element that you will see as we move along to the renderings and elevations. Next slide, please. So again, this grassy element is surrounded by the perimeter with hedges and some knee walls. The site does require a build to line, so therefore we are appeasing that by adding those elements, since our since our expansion is only going 21,000 square feet as opposed to the 25 that was originally in the development plans. So we have again, the existing hedge. There are some permanently open gates that would allow access, very welcoming, but that hedge and that knee wall would be at a height that would be welcoming and provide visual into the site. And then as you look kind of to the far left and to the far right, we're going to have some tree elements and some higher shrubs that would provide more security at those areas where the vehicle is closer to this park element. A couple things to note about the pavilion. We have elevated it onto like 2 steps up, so therefore not only will you have outdoor seating underneath this pavilion, but you will also have kind of a nice sitting area looking out onto the lawn or the other areas of the site. So next slide, please. And then David, if you don't mind, go ahead and skipping through to the plan, because these are just photos of the site, which we can come back to if there's any questions. So this is the existing floor plan. As it is right now, the entry is on the corner, and the facade, which is on the north of your page facing Island Park Drive, is pretty blank with that expectation of future program. So next slide, please. And here's our expansion, the darker orange at the north of the page. With this new plan, we have created the 2 new entries that face the parking lot. They're a little bit more spaced out, so not everybody's crowded at the corner like it used to be. And then the real elements and the real departure for Publix is the inside elements where you're at the bakery and the deli. As you can see, those have actually been split by a seating area in between, so this indoor cafe. And then it kind of unprecedented, Publix has added a door there so that therefore you do have that connectivity from the inside to the outside, grab a sandwich, go out there and sit, and vice versa. You would be able to enter in through that door as well. So that's a nice element. And then all that will be glazed right there at that cafe as well. So we're trying to add as much glazing as we can on Island Park Drive. And then as we move to the produce, plan right. Again, another departure, we really worked on changing the equipment layout in that area. So instead of higher elements along that perimeter wall, we now have lower elements and have provided glazing at that produce department as well. So again, adding as much glazing as the program would allow us to on Island Park Drive. Next slide, please. Again, I said a new departure. We really kind of step back and look at the local country aesthetic, Charleston influences, the surrounding context, and decided that our previous design was very married to the existing aesthetic and the existing tower. And so we felt like all those elements, if we simplified the tower, we could depart to a much cleaner, much more impactful design. Next slide, please. So this is the view from Island Park Drive, kind of that corner where those apartments are now. Looking at the site, I would say previously we really focused on the front facade, and a secondary element was the Island Park Drive facade. This time we approached these two facades as equal, and even this corner piece. So you can see our new tower right there at the corner. It is open air, so you'd be able to walk underneath it and again, continue across Island Park Drive under that tower and around to the front entryway. You can see the pavilion to the left of the tower that has the Publix on it. Thank you. And then again, those knee walls with the gates and kind of openings, kind of these colonnades at the back of the park. Thank you. And right there at the pavilion, again, kind of signifying entry and access along Island Park Drive. Next slide, please.
Oh, give me a second. It's not advancing. Oh, there we go.
Thank you. So you can see on the right-hand side of the page is the existing tower, and again, our attempt to simplify that tower to work on the notion of hierarchy and to really give prominence to the entry, the front facade, and to give less hierarchy to the existing tower. We did, again, some simplification looking at low country materials and aesthetics, and so we could really supply that hierarchy at the entry where the customer is going to be going in. Next slide in. Thank you. So still front facade. Again, the new towers to the left, the existing to the right. We are playing with some materials. Right now, what we're looking at is a white brick base with board and batten above, and then kind of having this accent materials. We kind of calling this the 3 panels, if you will, with a medium gray brick with some hardy plank accents that you'll see throughout the site. We're really trying to break down the box into a more human scale, both on the front facade and as we turn to Island Park Drive. Next slide. So this is the view from Island Park Drive. Again, you're kind of right there at that crosswalk. So you're looking right at that new tower, giving, again, just as much prominence to this facade as it is to the one from the parking lot. And you can see, again, the entry into the pavilion. And again, we just feel like this provides so much more visual interest than what we proposed before. Next slide. The entry, we're looking at materials, but we wanted to provide some accent materials at the entry, again, providing more interest. So we were looking at a basket weave accent above the entry, kind of the one with the Publix is where the entry is going to be, and kind of see the second area on the right is kind of a little bit more of an exit, but they can both be used interchangeably. But again, utilizing the same materials for both, but then giving a little bit more prominence to the entry. We've also added these awning elements, as you can see over the 2 entry doors, again, just signifying entry to the customer. The bottom rendering is just another view of the pavilion, kind of from the back side, looking towards the parking lot, if you will. Next slide, please. The comment about 3D elements, we took this one very seriously. We did a lot of study of the views from I-526. So this is actually a photo that we took. And you can see on the bottom that you can indeed see the tower elements. And so we really focused on that and tried to address that. And the top image is a rendering showing the tower elements, kind of the back size. We've completed all the tower elements on this project. So you have a similar view from Island Park Drive as you do currently. I'm sorry, from I-526. Next slide. We have started to look at materials. So you can see the white brick at the bottom. Again, that's kind of going to be the base along the front. And it's definitely going to wrap around Island Park Drive with the white board and batten above. That medium gray accent brick. Again, you saw that in the 3 panels. I'll point it out in the elevation, but we kind of balance that as well, intermediate throughout the front and Island Park Drive facades with that hardy plank gray accent in between. And then the Galvin loom standing seam metal roof. Again, just a very grayscale approach as opposed to what we had before. That was more of the beige and working off the existing materials. You can see in the bottom left that 3D textured basket weave panel. Again, that's still a study, but we want to do something that has a node to Charleston that's an accent at those entries. And then last but not least, those concrete roof tiles to add a pop of color at the entry. And they're actually, that awning will be mirrored at the produce department as well above that glazing. Next slide, please. So this is, again, the front facade view from the parking lot. I don't want to belabor this too much, but again, we've really studied a hierarchy on this facade, and then we've added the additional glazing. It's true glazing, if you will, in between the 2 entry doors. So right under the Publix and then right under the awning to the right, that will all be vestibule. So we've added as much glazing as we can there. And then as we studied the facade arcade, if you will, we needed the balance of glazing on the left side of the doors. So kind of in between that door and the 3 panels. Yeah, right there, David, thank you. That is glazed, but the program behind it is restroom, so that will be spandrel. Again, you can see in this facade, the balance of the accent of the gray kind of mirrored to the left of the existing tower that we've kind of, again, simplified. So right there, we've got that balance. Thank you again. And we do provide a covered awning. So from the right side all the way to the left, around to the pavilion, you would be able to walk completely over canopy as you move through the site. Next slide, please. The Island Park Drive facade. Again, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but you can see again the hierarchy with the towers in the distance, the glazing at the pavilion. Again, we've got a door that you can go in and out there as well. And then as we move to the left, we've again used that hardy plank accent as a kind of a backdrop for those trees and vegetation there. As you continue to move towards the rear of the site, that's the produce glazing that I mentioned with the same accent awning above. And then we did use that gray accent brick, again, just to break up the box, pull everything down to more manageable chunks and introduce the human scale. The parapet does drop back as the roof slopes back towards the rear of the building there as well. And as you move to the far, right there, yep, thank you, David, that will be the board and batten. Next slide. So we did put a lot of attention and a lot of focus on the 2 facades that the customer and the community would use and interact with. So on the back, we kept it simple. As we studied the site and walked back there, from the office building on the other side of 526, all you can see is the hedges and the existing trees. So again, pretty much this is just that board and batten wrapping around. Next slide, please. And then as we continue to the other side, we did address the tower, obviously on both sides that you can see. We did add a little awning over an emergency exit door as well towards the front, but continued the board and batten, kept it simple, and wanted to, again, pay all the attention and give all the elements to the customer and the community. Next slide. These are just elevations that break down or explain the materials a bit further. So if you could skip through these and go to slide C3, please. So this is our civil plan. I did want to draw your attention to a couple things. One is we did add parking towards the rear of the park. So there's 4 spaces kind of in the top right corner of the site, if you will. Yes, thank you, right there. So therefore, we're able to meet our parking requirements dictated by the city of Charleston. So that brings us to our 255 that we needed. And then I did forget to mention kind of that path along Island Park Drive. You can see in the plan, there's some kind of bump outs, if you will. Yep, a little bit more to the left. Right there. Yep, those bump outs right there. We will have fixed benches there and some site lighting as well. So again, just a really nice connection to Island Park Drive and entry point as you are approaching the site. Anything I missed? Next slide, please. We did also want to share that we did present this this design to Daniel Island's Architectural Review Board, and on May 22nd, we received approval for the conceptual design. I'm not sure how we are on time, but I did want to see if Steve, I'm kind of doing an audible here, but Steve, was there anything else that you wanted to add in regards to the landscaping that I might have missed?
We are over 15 minutes, so if you keep it a little bit brief.
Nope.
That's fine. Thank you for taking this application. We, while the landscape is conceptual, I mean, we did actually show plant material there, but keep in mind that the landscape is conceptual. The idea is to, especially in the park area, is to somewhat enclose that space, keep it secure for kids, like Heather was saying. So I'll be happy to answer questions, specific questions about landscape. The palms that were clustered are closer to the building to kind of reduce that scale and that facade of the building somewhat, and give that that park area a real sense of enclosure and a little bit of canopy. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about landscape.
Thank you.
Thank you. Heather, is that it?
That's it. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Does any of the board members have any questions?
I have one quick question. And for that park area that we were just talking about, is there a reason why there's not pedestrian access into that park area from the rear parking? I mean, I know there is some right along the building, but I just see people like stepping right over those shrubs and walking into the park. I didn't know if there was a reason why it wasn't there, or if that's something that could be explored further.
I think we can definitely explore that further. I do know as we were originally looking at this, we didn't have those parking spaces there, so it was kind of just a complete drive aisle, but that is something we could explore in greater depth.
That's all I have.
Any other questions? You're on mute, Kristen.
Sorry, I had one tiny question. Is that a second story above for office, or is it all just one very high ceiling store?
It is one story, correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just to elaborate, the heights are very similar to the store that's already there. Just continuing that roof.
Oh, that was another question I had. Is this a full demo, or are you remodeling the store?
We will be remodeling the existing and then adding to with all the full departments. Right now the store is pretty small on the grand scheme of things, so we're definitely able to provide a lot more offerings, a lot more options. Again, full service, bakery, deli, pharmacy. So this expansion allows us to do that.
Okay.
Michelle, did you have a question?
I did, but I think I understand what's happening. So I don't need to ask my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, with
Can
none.
I just, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Can I add to Kristen? The one other aspect is the store will stay open. The way that the site is configured is the existing will be able to stay open while we expand, and then they'll be able to close the other and open up the expansion side and then the full store opening. So that was very important, knowing that this is the only grocery store on Daniel Island.
Okay,
Thank you.
No more board questions. It is now the public comment period. We do not have any members of the public registered to speak. However, we did receive 3 submissions from the public that I will read. The first is from Susan Sand at 1739 Providence Street, stating her support of the plan and that the residents of Daniel Island need a full-size store, and having one on the island will decrease trips on I-526. The second is from Kevin McDonald at 1899 Village Crossing Drive, also expressing support on the expansion and that it's needed and the island's outgrown the current space, and keeping the expansion local for the same reasons of reduction in traffic. The third is from Carolyn Ruther at 155 Brady Street. She is also expressing her support for similar sentiments, that Daniel Island's grown and nearing build out, and that the current Publix is inadequate and running out of necessary items, etc. And the store needs to be expanded, etc., etc. And the new design is lovely and reminiscent of the North Point Publix at 1435 Ben Sawyer. It will fit in very well with the architecture of Daniel Island and be a pleasant venue. The Publix store managers have been creative in an attempt to provide shoppers with the items they need, etc., about just stocking the store, and the employees of the store ensure that Publix is a good neighbor and make that a great neighbor. But the capability of the store is maxed out, and she hopes that the design will be approved, etc., but expressing her very much support of it. And so that's it on the public comments. David, could you please give staff recommendations?
Sure. Let me get down to that. Okay, this is David Meeks. Staff comments. Number 1, staff feels the design of both the site and the building have greatly improved since the last review. Number 2, Daniel Island ARB has approved this conceptual design. Number 3, the pavers have been added to the drive in front of the store as asked at the last review. Number 4, the site plan C3 differs from the landscape plan L1 and L2 in the hardscape used. The site plan does not show or call out the various location of pavers. Staff likes the various paver locations shown on the landscape plan, and the site plan should reflect this as well. Number 5, staff likes the improvements made to the park on the northeast side of the building, as well as the covered eating area, which engages this side of the building, whereas before staff felt the northeast side was not addressed enough. Number 6, the landscape plan is much better developed. And number 7, staff likes the color scheme of the building materials. And with that, staff recommends conceptual approval.
Thanks, David. Heather, did you have anything that you wanted to clarify or respond to from David's comments or any of the public feedback?
Nope, I think number 4 noted, and we'll get that fixed the next round. Thank you.
Thank you. Now board discussion and a motion.
I wanted to just make a comment that it would be nice to see benches and maybe a dog park, water fountain, and bike stand, something in that little park if at all possible. Just because it looks like a nice enough little place where people will come and gather. You may want to consider that. Other than that, I love the design. I think it looks beautiful and will be amazing. I know that store well, and it definitely needs some improvement. And this looks very nice.
This is Andy. I like the changes that have been made to the plan. I agree with Aaron's comment regarding the access from those back spaces into the park. I think my only other comment is maybe to study the plant selection a little bit more, you know, specifically I'm thinking like the needlepoint and the Pittosporum and possibly the drift roses. You know, maybe a little bit more of a you know, bringing in some more of the native plants. You know, I see things in here that are really good. I just think that at the next level, I think it just needs to evolve.
Thanks, Andy. Any other comments or motion?
This is Michelle. I'd like to address the building for a few minutes. And I feel a little at a disadvantage because our other two architects are not here tonight. And I know they had comments previously about this application. I do want to start off, Heather, by saying I applaud your team and your leadership of your team to really understand our comments and to revisit the design. Your efforts are really appreciated, only because I know that you had been before us a couple times. And I think that I really appreciate and like what I see. I think that the convincing your corporate client of embracing something different and creative should be applauded. So I congratulate you and thank you for that. I think that the design has come a long way, and I appreciate your inclusion of some case study images from the Low Country. I understand them all. And I think that by and large, you've done a great job to successfully incorporate those items. But I do want to push you a little further. And if we can stay on this image that David has pulled up, A5.1. I think that your color scheme is successful, and I think that formally how you've broken up the facade and designated the entries is by and large successful. I wonder if you need to retain the existing tower, because programmatically it no longer signifies any entry. Its use has changed. And so I would actually encourage you to revisit this particular element, because as you can see in this elevation, it's still the highest element, and it really doesn't need to be. And I think that there is a way you can successfully articulate that tower. I think that the canopy, you're right in including the flat canopy and letting it turn the corner, because it connects the pedestrian way, from the front of the complex to the side. So I think that that's important. But I think that you could downplay it much more and allow it to be more successful in the overall, proposal of the building complex. I see that, there is, David, if you don't mind going to, let's see, the 12th sheet in the file, which is sheet number 3.3, that gives us the rendering of that corner of the front. I'm seeing in the plan that there are a couple of offices actually on that corner of the tower. It may be the office manager, and then maybe the associate's office. And wouldn't it be nice if they had windows, into their office space? I just, even if it's at the pedestrian level, I think that would be a nice gesture to just further refining the articulation of that particular element and making it a little truer, to how it's being used. I like this idea of the weave of the lattice that you're using, and that you're using it at the front. I don't know that you need it and the concrete awning. I think that where you're going with your forms of your roof and this board and batten and then the lattice, I think it may be enough to signify those entry points. So I would encourage you to study those. I mean, especially in this rendering with the dark color of your bracket, it just looks a little heavy-handed to me. So, you know, A, I'm not convinced that you totally need them, the canopy, the concrete canopy there. And then B, with this comment, I would encourage you to look at the proportion of that board and batten, I think it's board and batten siding, the vertical siding with the proportion of the lattice of that weave. I want to say that the weave wants to just be a little more in balance with that vertical siding. Does that make sense? And then going around, if we can go to the park side rendering, sheet A 3.5. I really love that there is this activated park space and this connection to the store, and I can really see this covered area being activated by families and folks on their lunch break, you know, stopping and spending time there, maybe, you know, taking their dog there and being able to grab a bite. I think it's great. I would encourage you to think about the facade that forms the backdrop of the park. And I don't know if it wants to be broken up. I understand that this portion in the center, if we're looking at the rendering to the left of the covered area, right? Yeah, the horizontal siding. I think you're proposing horizontal siding. I don't know if that wants to be broken up a little bit more, like you did on the front with the dark brick, if I'm understanding it correctly. Or if that might be an opportunity for a mural, you know, that could just help activate the space. I don't know if Publix would be willing to do that, but just something a little more decorative and community oriented might be nice there. And I almost would like to encourage you to think about that lattice, maybe if there is a way to introduce it at this outdoor pavilion area. I don't know. I want to almost link those two elements of the building together. I don't know if it's really a study for you, if there is any significance there, but that might be a nice way to tie those two portions of building together. But otherwise, I applaud you for coming before us with what you have. I think that I would support a, you know, positive approval and positive movement of this project through our processes. And I thank you for your hard work and coming back to us with what you have. Not many applicants do.
Thanks, Michelle. I agree with everything you said. I thought it was all very spot on. So is that any other comments or is that a motion?
You're a long motion. Let's see if I can condense it. Okay, I think I can do it. Unless any of my board comrades have any other suggestions. I didn't write down anything for landscape, so you guys are gonna have to help me. Okay, I'll make a motion for conceptual approval of 162 Seven Farms Drive with the following comments. Staff comments. Number 4 regarding the clarification requested between the site plan and the landscape plan in hardscape. The landscape plan showing the hardscape is preferred. I mean, for the most part, the other staff comments were positive. We can go on the record for supporting comment number 7, the color scheme of building materials is supported. And then I'd like to include the following board comments. Restudy of the entry awnings and if they're really required. Study the proportion at the entry of the vertical sided material in its relationship to the lattice or weave. Restudy the existing tower and its inclusion in the overall building proposal. And also consider glazing in that element, which would correspond programmatically with the interior spaces. And then restudy the expanse of, on the Park Island Drive side, restudy.
Did we lose her?
Michelle?
Michelle, can you hear us? We lost your video and your sound, but I see your name here still. Michelle, can you hear us? Wonder if I should call her.
Yeah, she was really close to the end.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like I could finish it for her, but
I know.
Exactly. Erin, she was going to mention your sidewalk, I think.
Well, she in that horizontal wall behind the park, I think is what she was in the middle of, and then the sidewalk. But I don't want to assume that without letting her finish. There's nothing else.
I'm gonna call her real quick.
She's coming back on right now. There she is. Michelle, you're good.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened.
No problem.
Lost the internet. I apologize. It was so close.
I know. It cut out. You said restudy the expanse of Park Island Drive side, and then it cut out.
Yes. And then I was passing the baton to Andy to include any landscape comments that I didn't write down.
Can you say that last one again about the Island Park side?
The Island Park side, just study the proportion of hardy plank wall expanse and consider breaking it up more proportionally, or, you know, thinking about if that's an opportunity for a community mural or some other sort of gesture.
Got it. Thank you.
And Michelle, I've just asked that you add for the design team to provide pedestrian access from the 4 parking spaces that were added along the back of the store, in the back of the park area, and to restudy the landscape plan, adding more natives into the palette and substituting the pittosporum, the needlepoint holly.
Hold on one second, Andy.
Okay.
I've restudied the landscape plan to add more native species.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was your
specifically the substituting for the pittosporum, the drift rose, and the needlepoint holly.
Okay. Is that everything?
That's all of mine.
So I have a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments 4 and 7, along with board comments. 1, restudy the entry awnings and if they are required. 2, study the proportion at the entry of the vertical sided material and its relationship to the weave. Is that correct, Michelle? Okay.
Yes.
3, restudy the existing tower and its inclusion in the overall proposal. 4, consider glazing in the element which would respond to the program in interior spaces. 5, restudy the expanse of Park Island Drive side and study the proportion of the hardy plank. Also study the opportunity for a community mural. 6, provide pedestrian access from the newly added parking spaces at the back of the building. 7, restudy the landscape plan to add more native species, specifically substitute the pittosporum, the drift rose, and the needlepoint holly. Was that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I'll
Kristen
call
Press
roll
will
now. Okay, I'll call roll now for votes. Aaron?
Yes, in favor.
And Andy?
Yes, in favor.
And then myself, yes, in favor. So congratulations and thank you so much for your hard work. It's evolved very nicely.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Heather.
guys.
Great job, yeah.
Good night.
Thanks,
So
Heather.
much different from that first east elevation off of Island Park Drive.
Good
Thank
job.
y'all.
Day.
All right, we'll move on
Gorgeous.
to our remainder items. David and I believe we were okay to combine the approval of the minutes unless anyone needs one of the meeting minutes separated out from the group. Otherwise, with the next on the agenda is items number 7 through 17, approval of minutes from August 6, 2018, December 2nd, 2019, November 18th, 2019, November 4th, October 21st, October 7th, September 23rd, September 9th, June 4th, January 6th, and September 9th was the last minutes for 2019. And for 2020, we have the approval of minutes from June 4th, January 6th, and January 21st. Is there someone that will motion to approve for all of the minutes?
Motion to approve all minutes.
All right, Andy
Second.
has a motion to approve. Who, is there a second?
Second.
Michelle seconds. And I'll now call roll. Kristen? You're, we can't hear you. I see a yes in favor. Will you give me a thumbs up? Okay, thumbs up. Kristen's yes in favor. Aaron, were you going to
Yes.
recuse? Yes in favor. Okay.
Oh, yes, in favor. That's fine.
Okay. And then myself, yes in favor. So all passed, and we are all done.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. That was a marathon Zoom.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had a nice break, but yeah, thank y'all.
well,
Great job, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Everybody
y'all.
have a
Have a
great
good
week.
night. You too.
Bye, everyone.
have a good night. Bye-bye.